Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Glowhood podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Mame, and today we have a special guest, R'Gos Rho. Welcome.
How y'all doing?
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for thank you for gracing us with your presence on my show. So today's episode, we're going to basically be interviewing Mr. R'Gos Rho. We'll be asking him some questions, and we'll wrap it up. And then if you have anything that you'd like to say at the end, you'll be given a chance to do that.
Sounds good.
All right, cool. So my first question is, where are you from?
Okay. I came up from California, SoCal, to be specific. A little town called Rialto.
Okay. And how's it over there?
When I was coming up over there, it was fine. And, everywhere has its pockets of problems, but for the most part, it's all right. It's what you would call the outskirts of LA.
The outskirts.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're close enough to LA to still be involved in the scene, but far enough, an hour away. Okay.
You can remove yourself from that element.
Okay. So all y'all people who want to go to LA and stuff.
You want to go to the Inland Empire and all that.
Right. So, if you want to kind of be away from the scene but close enough, I guess hit up Rialto.
I mean, you just be careful.
Oh.
Don't just go there thinking whatever is going to be. It is what it is. It's just like any other small town that you need to mind your P's and Q's for when you're there.
Just be on point.
Yeah. Because if you look at it, any small town, it's kind of like if you're not a familiar face. All right, we're just looking at you. You're going to be stared at a little bit from the natives, the locals.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then growing up there, how did you feel your childhood was in that area? Granted, I know. Yeah, because I know that some people move around a lot as kids, so they have different experiences to compare to. But also, if you've stayed in one spot for your whole childhood, I also want to know how that played out.
I only moved once in my whole life, but when I did, it was to like an apartment for a little bit. But being there the whole time, you get some serious foundational elements about what the world is and what your geographic location tells you about yourself to other people. So when you would say Rialto to certain people, they'd be like, either, hey, like, where the f*** is that at? Or B, like, oh, you're from Rialto, huh? Oh,
does it have a negative connotation towards it?
Well, San Bernardino, yeah, for sure.
Really?
San Bernardino, Rialto, Fontana, Moreno Valley, all those places is kind of like, all right, their nefarious attributes and contributions are probably known first.
Really?
Before the
appealing stuff,
the more positive stuff.
Oh,
like at the time, Ronnie Lott was like a famous football player. He went to my high school. Not while I was attending, but that was like one of the positive things that people got out of it. Like, oh yeah, he came back to his alma mater, his high school, donated money. Oh. And they named, I think, the football field or the gymnasium after him.
Oh, that's cool.
But that whole part, it's like, oh, okay, that's that one thing.
The one positive thing out of like thousands.
And it's like, oh yeah, well, we heard so-and-so got shot, or so-and-so had this happen, or the police is one of the things. Like,
so, okay, given that is the background of that city, how did you manage to like avoid all of the negative things in the environment?
Parents being for what they were, keeping me involved with either after school stuff or just saying, no, don't take your ass over there.
Really?
is really one of those two things. So it's like there was a point in time I was heavy into robotics, stayed after school.
So you're in like an after schools program or something?
Yeah, but it wasn't one that was elected towards me. I just found it.
Oh,
like,
okay.
I was already at school, and I saw a flyer, or maybe I was like keen on one of the teachers, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you might, this might fascinate you because we notice that you do this in class, and we always get on you about it. So why don't you just go over here to that school thing and go do that?" But that would be one of the two things that would keep some of the negative attributes from creeping up and being a statistic of that.
So, can you describe what your upbringing, like what led to your passions? So, since you were able to kind of avoid some of the nefarious activities in your city, I'm sure you developed some type of passion towards electronics or something like that, or whatever your field is.
No, I wouldn't say that.
Oh, really?
Passion.
What are your passions?
Like affinity, sure, but passion, no. My passions, for the few that do remain, they come down to really mundane things that people don't like to do.
Like what?
Driving.
Okay. So
Nothing
driving
beats
everywhere?
a good handling car on a twisty road with a stick shift, and you're just rolling through those gears. Now that's passion. That's
okay. So
to me,
you're a car junkie.
Oh yeah. I've had at least 14 vehicles in my life so far.
Wow.
So it's like, yeah, I'm a car junkie.
Okay. Well then.
Or if you're people who are across the pond, they call them petrolheads.
Oh, really?
They like to call us that. So.
Interesting.
I like to say I'm just a connoisseur.
So you know what? Okay, let's get into that then. Since you were a car junkie, what did you get into? Because I'm sure racing and stuff.
Well,
obviously, don't implicate yourself if
yeah,
there's
I'm not
any.
gonna incriminate myself.
But like,
that's not gonna be fly. So,
but in case there's other people who have similar interests. What did you get into? What did you like to do? Safe, things that are legal and safe.
that is a loaded thing right there. I'm really.
You want to pass? You want to go on the next question?
It's not so much passing. It's just like, okay, how do I really want to answer this? Like,
okay, like a kid who's coming up, who's like 15, 16, also has a thing for cars.
At 14.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
With the permit, of course.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. I'll answer it like this then, right? Mm-hmm. I'll put it this way. Jeez. I feel like I'm about to implicate.
Don't implicate yourself if you feel like that's the case.
What's the statutes of limitations in California?
I actually don't know, so let's not find out.
Okay. Yeah, it's like how far can I go with this and be like?
You were a young man with a car who liked to do activities with that car.
All right, yeah, let's do it. Okay. So with that being said, thank you for that introduction right there. I'll say this: the passion came when, God, I guess I can blame my cousin for this one too, but I'm not going to dox him. But the passion came from when I got a video game called Gran Turismo. Mm-hmm. It was on PlayStation, and it was like one of the only few games I actually played because I was a Nintendo fanboy or whatever. Mm-hmm. But it taught me certain dynamics of like how cars move and their geometry on the road. Mm-hmm. Because they literally had this thing called licenses test in the game that you had to pass in order to go race. So the art of stopping, starting, cornering, shifting, understanding how unsprung weight works, and things like that. So fast forward, now I legally started driving when I was in 11th grade. So fast forward, naturally my first inclination is to get a car with a stick shift. And I want to start modifying because I'm like looking at all these kids in high school. They're hanging out with car clubs. They're they're modifying. They got rims. They got sound. They got all these things going on. It's like, it was exciting. It's like, all right, cool. Let me jump into this. And then to piggyback on that, at the same time, I got into this anime called Initial D. It's about racing cars down a mountain in Japan.
Okay.
And then subsequently, Need for Speed Underground is all about underground lifestyle racing.
Yeah,
Hondas, Eclipses, Tiburons, all that, right? So, next thing you know, here I am getting deep into that. And that lifestyle, let's just say there was a couple of nocturnal emissions that got resolved by driving in various terrains.
Interesting.
And trying to prove yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I did keep that little topic short. Yeah, that we'll just end at that.
well, and okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so you were basically a car nut. And just
that's
anything and everything that came with that car culture, all that stuff, you were heavily involved in that.
Yeah, I was in car clubs and stuff. We used to do events, charities, and stuff like that. But this was like later on in like military days and stuff.
So after you finished school.
Oh yeah, long.
Okay, so you were an adult at that age.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's cool. So then, with the car club and all the other things, activities that you got involved with, could you say that you developed some guiding principles and values for the way you live your life?
Yeah.
Okay.
Take care of your machine, it'll take care of you.
Okay.
Meaning, I mean, we all know the machines are not like alive like humans are. They got their own, how do you say it, like their own existence. But it's more so in the terms of if you take care of your equipment, you know, it's less likely to fail on you. So that became a guiding principle, like keeping your car cleaned every week, really. Not just for the ladies and stuff, like, 'cause you know you want to go pick up something, but just the fact, like, hey, you know, if you ever got pulled over, if your car is clean, you know, and they wanted to do something, you know, something nefarious. That's gonna be the word of this podcast, nefarious.
Right.
But it lessens the likelihood of something happening that shouldn't have happened if the certain checks and balances were in order.
Okay.
Like, just basic maintenance. Take care of your oil. Check your tires. Check your filters. Make sure there's nothing in the car that can, you know, lure someone in that wants to steal your shit. Wait, can I throw something here?
Yeah. For the most part, I'll just put it's explicit for this episode.
Okay. Also, I think the levels are not working. It's
really?
Yeah, it's doing that right there. But anyways, to answer your question, the guiding principles, yeah, I'd say it's to stay on top of your maintenance.
So basically, prevention is better than cure when it comes.
100%. That's an old axiom.
Yeah.
Ounce of prevention is worth more than a pound of a cure. So that is just having your own. In America, when you're, and I can't say this is for all Americans, but the ones who are privileged enough or fortunate enough to get a vehicle, it's your first real vessel of freedom. That's why I cherished like having my license so soon, so early, because I knew, even though I didn't have a lot of resources to go far, but I knew I had the opportunity to go far because I had 4 wheels. I can get in a vehicle, get on the road, and go somewhere and come back. And this is way before we had GPS and shit. You know, you had like you had to remember the big ones, like little TomTom stuff.
Yeah, I remember.
So like I used to have one of those in my vehicle to go to find jobs when I was like working. When I was like working age, like I had to go find these places, and I was like, I've never been to LA, so I really relied on either. Damn, I'm dating myself here, but TomTom.
MapQuest?
Yeah, MapQuest.
MapQuest too? Okay.
I was gonna say you would print that motherfucker out, and you would look. You learn how to read a map real quick. You like, okay, 5 miles. That's like, okay, 5 exits. You start associating things. So the principles that came with that, it's like it all came from the car, because it's your first true sigil of like, okay, I'm out here in the world. I can move about it. Yeah, there's rules and stuff, whatever, but it's like I can leave my nest, as it were, and go out into the world and just go explore. And as long as you maintain your vehicle, it will take care of you. And you just made sure you got back home whenever you went out. So it meant a lot to me to put those principles in there. Aside from what my parents, drilled into me.
Right.
But the things that I learned on my own since I was a question, what principles did it put into me, and also the passion that came along with it.
So then you mentioned that you were in the military.
Yeah.
So during your time there, were you able to still involve yourself with your car enthusiasts and
I found people. Yeah, we had car clubs. I don't want to dox anybody here, but we had fun. We did our thing. But yeah.
That's cool. Okay. So then my next question is what are some challenges that you've experienced and how did you overcome them? So more so relating to, for an example, the car club and having to going from, let's say, high school into adult age, still maintaining that enthusiasm and passion, and then finding other people who have similar passions to that. How did you overcome challenges that you guys experienced? How did you guys overcome those challenges, and so on?
That's an interesting perspective. I don't think I have anyone ever asked me that, because the challenges that are presented are so varied, because the challenges that I would face wouldn't be the same challenges that a crew would face on a team level, because it's like you're still individuals. Like there will be an incident where just because I'm black and I'm in Georgia, I'm going to be looked at more keenly than, say, one of the white members of the team. So it's like, all right, well, they know, but to the outside, it's like you got this layer of like, okay, this is a car club. There's a bunch of young men. Before we get to the before we get to the ethnic part, it's like, okay, it's a bunch of young men, military age, high profile cars, they're modified. That's the first thing that people like the cops would be trying to deal with, right? That's one layer. Second layer is like, okay, now let's look at the individuals. Like, okay, well, there's only a couple black people in here, so let's get them first. Let's see if they got warrants or whatever. And then it's like, bro, I'm clean. What are you talking about? It turns into something else. So that was like one layer of challenges to deal with. Is even when we had organized events for like charities, like Trunk or Treat. I don't know if you ever heard something like that.
I think I have.
Where we did something for some kids, like they wanted to come see the cars that we had time. Like we had people with, and I don't know how well you know vehicles, but we had people with some really high profile cars. Like there was a dude that had the early Skyline that was imported from Japan. Then another dude had the new Skyline. They call it the GTR here in America. It was when it first came out. He had one. Another dude had a Genesis Coupe. The organizer had, it's dead now, but they were called Lancers.
I
Evo.
remember those cars.
Yeah. He had the Evo 8. I had a Tiburon. My other friend, he had an SRT 4, a Dodge Neon, and we had one dude with a Shelby Cobra. So like, you see these nice looking high end cars. Some of them, even though they're the commuter cars, but they're the high end versions. You're like, okay, well, I'm looking at the person that's driving that one. That's kind of weird. In this area, you black and you got a sports coupe.
Oh, interesting. So you get profiled.
Oh, immediately. Like I said, it's the layers, and that would be some of the challenges you got to deal with. On the more, I guess, positive challenges would be like getting organizations to like let us run these events on their property.
Getting sponsorships and things like that.
Like the highest one we had was the Kiwanis Club. I don't know if you ever heard of them.
No.
They're like this. They're well, damn. If you don't know, I can't even give you a frame reference. But for people,
maybe the people who are listening,
can you can look
help me out in the comments and things.
Yeah, they're. I don't know if they're absolutely national, but the Kiwanis Club is like a charitable organization. They go out and do stuff too, but they have a lot of property. So it's like when you want to do charity too, it's like, okay, they sponsor it, we use their facilities, and then we slap our name after them. So that would be one of those challenges, a positive challenge, if you will, to working with other charities.
Okay, yeah, that's good. So I guess my next question, because now that you're talking about like how one, you guys had to deal with, you know, systematic oppression, you know, and things like that. Also, just on top of being like profiled as young men with fast cars in America. I know that's already.
And on top of that, one's from California, so it's like you really out of place.
Yeah,
it's like you're black, you got a sports car, and you're from California. You're a walking platypus, bro.
Yeah. So it looks like an anomaly. Like you're like, we don't see you around here.
I probably was, and it didn't help that my shit was bright yellow.
Oh, you had a yellow car.
Remember, remember I was mentioning like the Genesis Coupe and the Lancers. Like I was one with the Tiburon.
So your Tiburon was a bright yellow.
It was bright, yeah. The Genesis Coupe, he had an interlagos yellow, but mine, like you can tell, mine looked like something else. It didn't look like a Hyundai.
What kind of yellow is the yellow tone? Like a school bus yellow? Or
my God, no! It was called sunburst yellow.
Sunburst yellow.
So it was bright, but it's a muted bright yellow.
Okay.
So it's not like screaming at you.
Okay.
And the other guy, he had like I said, his was a Genesis Coupe, and his was called interlagos yellow, and that was flaming yellow. Yeah. But anyways, yeah.
So then, besides the car club, car culture, all that stuff, what are some other pastimes or hobbies that kept you grounded when you were dealing with
robotics?
Okay, so let's get into that. Robotics. Can you elaborate on what you mean with robotics? Are you building them? Are you designing them? Like, what are you doing per se?
It started when I broke a PlayStation controller. Not out of rage. I wasn't doing the gamer rage, but I broke it. I think I dropped it on a tile or something because I was carrying it to a friend's house or something. I realized, I was like, this is weird. This is what makes the controller rumble. And then as soon as I kept peeling back the broken plastic, I was like, oh shit, like this is what a controller's made of? To my mind, it was just a hidden world. Like I didn't know what was in there. I just knew it was a PlayStation controller. I was like, oh cool, I'm playing video games, right? At each part of the plastic, I kept peeling. I'll never forget, it was an ice green, like translucent green controller. Love that controller, but I broke it, but whatever. Pulled the motor out. Then the motor had wires. The wires led me to the board. The board then showed me how the thumbsticks moved. The thumbsticks showed me where the buttons went. And then it just went on and on. I was like, oh, this is dope. And then, this is gonna sound weird, but call me curious. I hope y'all think I'm curious, but it's like, after I took the board out, the opposite side of it was very spiky for some reason. I didn't know this was just how they like fused all the parts to the board. I licked it. And
what?
Yeah, I licked it because like it was sharp enough to poke me like a rose thorn, but I was like, I wonder what this tastes like.
Why was that a thought that went into your mind?
Listen, I don't have an exact method to this. Okay, but I licked it and I got a little bit of a jolt.
You got electrocuted.
Yeah. And so then that led me on to the discovery of like, okay, electronics have a texture and a taste to them. So then I was like, what else has this? So then one day, there's this thing called Rumble Robots came out when I was a kid. I took that apart because it broke. I didn't break a brand new toy, don't get me wrong. But I pulled it apart and it had a 9-volt in there. And it had that same red-black pattern of cabling like the controller did. I was like, oh, okay, so this probably has a taste to it.
Oh my gosh.
So that's how I found out about 9-volt batteries and how you touch to your tongue, you get a little jolt.
Oh my god. We're not condoning you guys do this, please. Please don't.
Oh, it's harmless. You'll survive. You're not gonna
okay.
You're going to feel weird. You're gonna feel
Disclaimer. This is the
Oh,
thoughts
yeah,
and opinions of Mr. Rho.
Yeah, yeah. This is your podcast. So let me go ahead and let you get that out. My bad. But yeah, I'm not advocating you go do it, but I'm just saying like that let me know now, not today, but like later on in life, like, oh, okay, I'm a person that likes to explore and try to invent things. So here's the invention part, right? So after I did that, I took what remained of that PlayStation controller, and I took the rumble mechanisms, I took the 9-volt, and I took the wiring from both, and put I think it was either a 2x4 or a small, like it was a small plank of wood. Put some nails, wrapped some of that wire around, and I made a shock board. So I know that's not robotics. It's like, hear me out. It gets better. So the rumble mechanisms are called actuators, right? So after a certain amount of current goes to them, they start to wind up and they spin fast, like nonstop, because the controller has programming to let you know when it rumbles. But when you just send a current through it, it just goes. So then I'm like, oh shit, I just made propellers. out of like, I didn't make propellers, but like I made something that could be propelled. So then I put it on the ground and I watched the board kind of flutter, and then I saw like, oh, it's starting to walk. So I was like, okay, so if I get 3 more of these, I can make legs. And then, unfortunately, I went to it was called EB Games back then, but now it's called GameStop or whatever. Found me a broken controller for like, I think it's like $12. I was broke as fuck. Excuse me. Oh, well, you said I can swear.
Yeah.
But I asked my parents, like, hey, look, I need another controller. I was like, but I don't need a brand new one. I need a broken one. Went there, came home. So the controller has 2 inside, right? So I need 1 more. So now I got 4 of these motors. Put them on each side of the board. Put the 9-volt, and it was just walking like this.
Oh my god!
I was like, oh, I really like this. Like I like the mechanics. I like making things. And I was like, okay, I want to be an inventor. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And to me, to the world, it's like, this is like some stupid kid's art project.
No,
it's like,
but like, this is how kids get the ingenuity to spark, their creativity.
Yeah, but my parents didn't know what I was doing in the garage. They just know I was out in the garage.
Most parents are not. They don't really know. Like, they'll give you the tools, but they're like, figure it out. Like, that's up to you. Like, figure out what your passion is and go.
Yeah, but they were just looking at me. Here's the thing. I never knew if they came outside to the garage, like look over my shoulder and say like, "What the hell is this boy doing?" They
might have.
And if they did, they didn't say anything.
They probably were like, "All right."
Well, it's better than him hanging out with them gang members down the street, probably. So yeah. So that's where, to answer your question in a very long-winded form, that's like how I got into robotics. Like, it happened because I dropped a controller on some tile or concrete, taking my console to a friend's house, and then I just like, oh, this is a whole world within a world. I didn't know this existed. So then,
riddle me this. For someone else who has like a little kid who had, because how old were you when you first got those thoughts into your head, like, I want to be an inventor, this is what I want to do when I grow up?
Well, it happened simultaneous, so I would say around, I want to say 7, if not 6.
So really young children, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, because you're talking about 1997, like PlayStation came out in, I think, 95, and I didn't get one until like 2 years later. Because, we're poor. It's like,
also, you were a little kid. You were like 5.
Just like,
what are you going to do with a PlayStation?
Yeah. So it's like, and all that happened. So, like, I would say it was around age 6 or 7 whenever that incident happened, when I dropped the controller.
That's when it sparked.
But that was like all in one shot, though. Like, that same year, from the controller falling, breaking open, to the months later till I can get another controller, and then like the toys in between, and finding 9 volts, like that all that happened in the concurrent year.
So what advice would you give for young people, maybe young parents who they have a child and they kind of see that the kid has an interest in something like that, but they don't really know how to foster that, or to a kid who feels like they don't know where to turn, they have an interest in robotics or they have an interest in electronics? How would you encourage them to like go and really dive deep into that passion?
If you were to ask me that 10 years ago, obviously you can, but I would have an answer, but today it's not hard. I mean, most kids are growing up with electronic devices. So.
Well, yeah, but that just because you grow up with electronic devices doesn't mean you want to know how it runs or how it works.
That's true. I mean, I had the PlayStation. I didn't know there was circuitry. I just saw the end product. But I guess the circumstances and the environment have to be right.
So as a parent, parents do need to foster
I'm not a
that
parent,
environment. Well, I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying, as like if you were to have a child who has those interests, the way to foster that for them to be able to encourage that growth in that particular sector, also keep them away from trouble and things like that.
I guess to answer that would be like, all right, well, if like little Johnny or little Susie or whatever is dinking around on something, I just pop my head in and like, oh, what's going on here? And they're cognizant enough to even like start trying to construct shit. Then I'd be like, oh, okay, I wouldn't say anything first. I'll see if it's just a one-off. Then if I see a pattern of it, like they're going around my home disassembling shit, I'm like, okay, we gotta hone in on this energy and put you somewhere where you can deconstruct their shit and not mine. That was $1,000 stereo. Like, what are you doing? And I would be mad, but I wouldn't be mad at the wonderment or the exploration. I'd be mad at the act, like you destroyed my personal stuff. Right. But if you're a parent and you start noticing that your offspring are like deep diving into something that you think is complex for someone their age, monitor that. Okay. Make sure if that is a genuine affinity for that, wait for it to happen again. Okay. It could be at any point in time, because like I said, my come to Jesus moment, if you will, when I started exploring these inner worlds of electronics was by happenstance. Like I broke something and then it put me on that path versus they didn't break anything. They just started, like, you had the ingenuity to say, hey, I need a screwdriver or some type of tool to open this. That alone is your flag. Like, okay, this one is kind of sharp. No pun intended, but keep your eye on them. Because if they have the wherewithal to want to even get into something and you see them trying to use tools, that means they're critical thinking. That means they have complex thought. And I don't even have to be a psychologist to tell you, like, no, that means that individual is thinking like critically. They're like, okay, I want to get in that. I need something small enough to get in between a wedge. That means you are breaking that down in your mind, in a child's mind, like that. Like, okay, I know my fingers didn't work. I need something smaller than my fingers, but strong enough to open it. They might not be thinking that verbatim, right? But the thought process. But that's what they're doing. They are tinkering, trying to deconstruct it to get to the end goal. So that's what I said. If it happens once, it could be a fluke, right? But if you see them doing it multiple times in different environments, foster that. Okay. That's your next whoever or whatever. That's the next one. That's the next one. Y'all keep an eye out. There it is. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to our next segment. Sure. The lit topic segment. So this, again, everyone, this is a new segment that I'm introducing into these episodes. So the first one that we will be highlighting is adulting in the 21st century. So, if you don't know already, we're both millennials. So we grew up in a time prior to technology booming, but we grew up also with technology. So we kind of have the best of both worlds, but also the worst of both worlds. So my first prompt for you, Mr. R'Gos. Okay. How has your experience been as an adult? How would you rate it? Because for me, I would rate this a 3 out of 10. Is it out of 10? That's the scale? I mean, whatever scale you want to use. Okay, one more question. Is the lower number considered high? Okay, just because, some people go 10 out of 10 is good. Okay, so I would say 7. 7 out of 10? Your adult experience in total? With all the economic turmoil? Okay. Yeah. And then how has your own experience been in general? so far, I've made it to this many decades of my life, so I must be doing something right.
That's true.
That's not to say I didn't have any hiccups or speed bumps, shit. Again, no pun intended, but the experience is still ongoing.
Well,
and it's an experiment, really, because up till my grandmother dying and realizing like this is the most devout person in my life, you know, this is in the age of ignorance. Like I was just like, wake up, go to church, follow the rules, blah 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 blah. And I'm like, well, God let one of His faithful workers, if you want to call it that, die one of the most horrible ways a human can die. So what does that mean? And I'm sitting there trying to analyze that and understand it while it's not I'm grieving and understanding like this is permanent, like this is my first brush with permanence. And realizing that the state of life is impermanence. It becomes like, oh, okay, so this is it. Like this is even she died when I was 14. So it was 14. I was like, oh, okay. So this is life. This is it. Nobody stays forever, and you're not guaranteed anything. Okay, a lot of people can get that a lot earlier on. Some people don't get it till way later on, and their whole world is shook. So, that's not to say that I'm special. It's just like, you know, that particular thought process, it's probably there for everyone, but you just have to go through it. So, to answer your question, it comes down to, all right, well, so far there are rules, but there are also no rules. The only rules are there by those who have money, resources, and power to create them and to enforce them. Because I can make rules right now, just like you can easily have rules for this podcast. No swearing, no blaspheming, you know, whatever. But those are artificial. You made them up. And in a way, you have the power to enforce them. You can be like, hey, we're shutting this podcast down. You have every right because you have the power. So that lets me know back then, okay, well, God is the ultimate power. He let that die. So then what does that mean for me? I might as well just enjoy my life the best way I can, because there's not going to be any right or wrong answer. You can just easily get sick and die, or you can be instantly rich and famous, and it's just like, what? What? It's literally the world's largest RNG game. So, by the way, RNG stands for random numbers. So it's like, oh, okay. So moving off of that principle alone, it comes down to like, all right, look, since I'm black, there's rules.
You got a disadvantage.
Yeah, there's that, because motherfuckers don't like the color of my skin. Okay.
Yeah, they don't like the amount of melanin.
And I used to try to dive in deep to like why that is, but then it's like you get lost in that. So I'm like, all right, so there's this artificial subset of rules for humanity in general. Then you got the subset of artificial rules on particular people within humanity. And then they have a subset of rules, and it just goes on and on infinitum. But I'm like, none of this shit is happening on Mars.
Not that we know of.
No, none of it. I'm saying that with a definite. In this
you know that for sure.
Unless after this podcast, I'll probably be dead and gone long before that happens. But when we colonize another planet as the species on this rock, no, the shit that's happening here is not happening on any terrestrial body that we know.
No.
Or any Jovian. So it's like, okay, then what are we really doing?
We're doing things. So then,
yeah, that's my answer. That I hope that was sufficient.
Yeah, because that's your own experience.
Yeah.
So then I want to ask, like, how do you feel like our generation is handling things versus other generations in general? So I guess I'll start off with right when we became officially adults, like official adults, like in the year that we turned adults, the freaking economy collapsed.
2008.
In 2008, the economy collapsed terribly. And all of us, again, we're now entering into adulthood, literally just barely. And, you know, we have a whole recession that we're dealing with. And then it recovers for a little bit. And then we have a freaking pandemic. And now we're in the midst of like a silent recession. So we've had two really impactful economic crises in our lifetime within less than 15 years. More than any other generation has ever encountered. So I want to know your perspective on how do you feel like us as millennials are dealing with all of the shit that we get thrown our way, despite what the quote unquote boomers like to say, like, oh, well, you know, in our day, you know, we have to suck it up. Okay, well, we're not in your day anymore. So I want to know, as a millennial, with these astronomical housing prices and the astronomical cost of living, all that stuff combined, them expecting us to still carry out as if nothing is wrong when everything is wrong. How do you feel?
So it sounds like it's a two-part. So
yeah.
Feeling and dealing.
Yes.
So the dealing portion, I would say, depending on your diaspora, where you're at, you could be doing just fine. But for what is it called, general populace? Yeah. I would say it is a struggle. And even if you have a 6-figure paying job, if you're in the wrong state with that job, you're struggling. If you don't have that and you're in a state where you don't have, well, let me rephrase that. If you're in a state where you are making money, but it ain't enough, but it isn't like California, you're struggling. So if you found ways to, I'm just going to say, cut people off, cut things off, that's what you have to do. It's self-preservation at the end of the day. If you only got $20 left to your name, yeah, you can take a gamble and be like, I'm going to be a good Samaritan and give it to them, but you're asking for a lot. Whereas, yeah, in our grandpappies and grandmammies days where still wasn't as great, it's better, holistically speaking, but in terms of this capitalistic society that we're in, it was much simpler for them. Because the same things that they were using, I think this is an old analogy too, an economic analogy. Bread, butter, and gas, right? Same three things we've been using since industrialization, when Ford got his foot out there and did his thing, right? Ain't nothing changed other than the prices.
The prices.
And not to get into, we're not going to do any tinfoil koofy stuff about all the Federal Reserve. It is either way, it doesn't matter. You're in and out. The monopoly money is here. Inflation is high. It is not the time of our forefathers. Is there even a term for foremothers?
No, not really.
Either way,
it's patriarchy.
Sure. But the point is, like, those simple items in our society, you know, because the world over, I don't know what's going on in Europe and Africa and all that, but here on this continent, the same three things that people are going to use every day has not changed, but yet the price is over what it used to be.
Like 5 or 10 times more.
Now, to the second part of your question, feeling about it, I think the feeling does suck, but there's so many facets to this where it's like the feelings can be numbed, which is probably why weed isn't legal, but it's not as a high punishable crime anymore for many reasons. And I know a lot of black folks that are locked up right now, like, what the yeah. But you got to look at it from not just that micro, you got to look at it from the macro scale. Why are they now being laxed on it? It's to let people not think about the economic situation. Why certain drugs that are being pushed, like, this might get your podcast.
Well, then don't name them, but let's just say substances.
Yeah, let's just say certain substances. Why all of a sudden it's prevalent
in our society, social settings, and things like that.
Well, because they don't want economic unrest, which they know is coming. It's
inevitable.
It's already began with immigrants flooding in and all that stuff. It's in its next phase coming. So, just to reiterate, to answer your 2-part one question, dealing with it, cut where you gotta cut. and don't feel type of way about it. Be pragmatic as possible. Yeah, you would like to go out on that trip. Yeah, you like to go there, but think about what's going to happen tomorrow, because chances are, even though tomorrow's not a guarantee to you, chances are you're going to wake up tomorrow and your economic situation could have been a little bit better if you thought a little bit through instead of just living for the day.
Don't YOLO. This is not a YOLO season.
Not anymore. No. Because them days is long.
They're gone.
If you wake up at 5, and this is not for a job, just I'm saying, if you wake up at 5 in the morning, you'll see how long the day is. It's a long time, and you got only $100 to get through it in America. That's a long
$100 in a day.
That's $100 ain't gonna get you.
That's not even enough, and that's crazy that we have to say $100 is not enough to even get you through the day. Because back in the day, $100 could get you through a week.
A month? What are you talking about?
I mean, yeah, in certain places. In certain places, yeah, a month.
And I'm not an economic scholar. I'm gonna just say that right now. I'm just saying, based upon history books before they started scrubbing them, people used to get like $500 checks, but $500 would last them almost 2 months because the things that you needed were not overly priced.
Right.
You're talking about stuff that was like 10 cents, 15.
They actually priced it at a reasonable rate.
Hell, when someone said that's $1, are you crazy? That's what I'm saying. So now it's like $100. Like, all right, man. We scoff at $100, but it's like that's where we're at though. Where $100 might as well be just as good as $1 at this point.
Yeah, $100 feels like 20.
You need $100.
Yeah.
To be like, oh, okay, now I can move around today.
And you feel like you're comfortable. You feel like, okay, hey, if you can, I got some money.
Especially if you're out in the world, like I said, if you're starting your day at 5 a.m. Say you even skip breakfast, you're going to eat at least twice. For one person to eat,
it's at least
it's at least starting $15.
Yeah.
And that's like 4% already of what your $100 you're just cutting into, or no, well, it'll be 15%.
15%.
It'll be 15%.
But that's
I was thinking of 1,000. But that's what I'm saying. So hopefully that answers your question. And then to reiterate the feeling. The feeling is, I would say, try to take your feelings out of it.
But then my next question is, how do you feel being a millennial in general? If
I don't subscribe to that.
You don't subscribe? Okay, so
they can put, just because of my date of birth, sure, you can rope me into that, but I don't subscribe to like these
Millennial, Gen Z, Gen X,
these classifications,
the generational classifications.
It doesn't it stopped making sense after you said baby boomers. They said that only because of the wartime efforts and stuff, but I'm saying after that it's just humans then.
Yeah,
of course you're gonna have a boom in population after a war. Motherfuckers just died.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Even when it was like before World Wars, when the people had conflicts and tribal warfare, the population always takes a dip because people die, and then usually it's the men that die. So the men that are left over go slug it out with the chicks that are left over, and then the population comes back up. Now that might not be the best cream of the crop because all the good fighting ones are dead. Yeah. So now you got a generation of these other types of people. So yeah, that's when like the whole labeling, like, oh, you're a millennial. I'm like, sure, but I don't. I'm just I'm a human on this rock, just trying to make it to the next day.
Well then, okay, even though you don't subscribe to that, I still got a couple of questions, including dating. How do you feel? Because that is different and that is unique to millennial versus the boomers or the Gen Xers.
The economic situation made that different. Just that alone. Take away, even if you took away the internet, because I have a feeling that's where this is kind of lean into.
Well, I'm not going to get into the red pill, blue pill stuff right now. Yeah. I try to avoid those type of topics.
So then let's avoid it.
On my podcast, because we don't want to subscribe to any hate speech and.
Then can we do this?
Yeah.
Since this is your podcast, can we do this? And it's like, all right, I want to set the parameter of like, okay, if you take away internet and you take away, well, I guess you have to get rid of the cell phones too. Shit. So let's put it this way: if you take away
smartphones, then.
Okay, yeah, because you got apps and stuff. Okay, so you take away the internet as we know it now. If we go back to internet 1.0, but it's today. The economic situation changes the dating landscape straight up.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, yeah, I like you, but I'm not going to spend $400 on you and I just met you. You know how ludicrous that sounds? I gotta pay for rent. I gotta pay for utilities.
Yeah, you got.
So you want me to finance you on the first time meeting you? That's nuts. I'm not doing that. So, ask your question about the dating landscape.
I just want to know your thoughts. Dating then versus now, like in terms of not just the economic landscape, but also the customs. Like people don't court anymore. You know. Well, because of all the different movements that have gone on in the past 50 years, you know, now chivalry is not as high anymore, or it's not something that people are expected to do or expecting of others, you know? So I just want to know your thoughts, your views on dating in general. And then if you have a good comparison, because I know you said your grandparents, right? With how they got together, between what you've experienced and then what you've seen them. Granted, you're not going to be able to have firsthand info on their experience, but comparing those two different scenarios, how would you say that the landscape has changed for their generation versus our generation?
Oh, so you... Okay. Well, you'll have to look at the root cause of that. Being that, all right, well, you have... Again, the internet is going to play a role in because you're exposed to much more now. Whereas exposure wasn't as prevalent, we can just say 25 years ago. When you would date somebody, you didn't see their Facebook profile, their MySpace, whatever,
Instagram,
TikTok. You're not seeing these different facets of people. And then add in the fact the pandemic, right? So it's like those cultural customs that once were, I'd still say at least pockets of it were still remaining. They're gone now because both genders have seen both sides. Males have seen how females really act, and females have seen how males really act. So now it's like, well, now that social connect or contract, I was like, hey, look, I'm at least going to open the door, do something. You're like, I'm not doing nothing for these ratchet hoes. Or the flip side is, I ain't doing for these dusty niggas. So, it comes back to that exposure. Like, if that wasn't so pronounced now, it would be more like dating back then. It's like you don't really know, but that's kind of the allure because that means you get to want to know them. Versus, let me just scroll through your Instagram real quick, see where you've been. Okay, you got some money. Okay, oh, you got a body. Oh, okay, yeah, I can mess with that. Okay, cool. Oh shit, wait, you got an OnlyFans? Nah, I'm good.
So having the level of exposure has taken away the mystery.
Of course it has.
So mystery was a prominent element in dating.
It was the same. It's the same thing that Bible thumpers were saying back in the day. It's like, if you're being too promiscuous, what's going to make the person want to stay?
So having some mystique about you helps.
That alone will be like, okay, this gives me a interest to want to stick around to figure out what you're all about. Versus, okay,
you're an open book,
titties and ass, or you got a huge, schlong. Okay, after that, then what? So are you saying you're only just those things? Okay, well, great job, old man. Get out the room. We're out here. City boys, city girls are up. Whatever. But my thing is that has been an old axiom for so long about keeping yourself virtuous to a degree where it's like, look, if you want someone to be interested in you, be interested, be interestable.
Be interesting.
Yeah, well, yeah, I can't think of the word. But yeah, be interesting. It's like, but if I see you, booty hole brown, pee hole pink, I'm like, why?
There's no intrigue.
But here's
There's
the
no
thing.
mystery. There's no.
But that's
allure.
from our generation. The mindset of the ones,
millennials.
well, whatever's behind us. It's whatever's behind us. Whatever you want to call it.
Oh, the
but,
Gen X, Gen Zers.
Whatever. The thing is, their exposure compared to what we were exposed to, like TV shows like The Man Show, Girls Gone Wild, Jerry Springer, stuff like that. We saw that, but it was like in short bursts that it didn't have a lasting impact. It's like, all right, you saw something crazy, like, dang, that's like shock value. Yeah. It's like, oh, dang, they really did. They came out the house looking like, whoa. Yeah. Now it's just like,
it was shocking. Now that's everyday.
Now it's like, no, I'm just outside. Like, it's like, oh, no shame.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Bring back shame.
Yeah. Okay. But that's the purpose. I'm just saying those virtues are now, if not eradicated, they're dying, or like I said, they've already fading. Yeah, because it's like, again, the pandemic, people were boxed in. They were scared to just walk outside and breathe air. Meanwhile, I'm just flying around. But
oh my gosh.
But I'm just saying, like, you're seeing their world is on their phone. That's it. They don't have the first-hand account. They got second-hand, third-hand.
Right, but they're taking it as first.
And they're internalizing that. And it's also messing with their psychology, because it's like, well, if I go out here, I saw what happens with this person. Why the hell would I expose myself to that? So, I see you hitting a watch. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time's up. So
okay.
we're gonna be wrapping up soon, but I got one more question.
Okay, go ahead.
And then you can plug in your stuff.
Sure.
How do you feel about religion and spirituality for our generation and below versus the generations prior? Because I personally can see the way that people treat religion, especially the Gen Zers, the millennials. We are more spiritual, quote unquote, as opposed to religious. And the previous generations were more religious than spiritual, even though, of course, they were spiritual, with whatever they were doing. But it was more religious, like they went to church every Sunday. They went to mosque every Friday, or they went to the synagogue every...
Yeah, they had their rituals.
They had their set schedule of like, hey, I got to meet up. I got to go and dedicate my time to God, and then I'm going to come back and then get on with the rest of my life. Versus us with the, I would say millennials and below, where we're more so like, I just want to connect with God one-on-one. I don't need to go to a church. I don't need to be in a building. I can connect with Him anywhere and everywhere. I can go out into the field and connect with nature, and that is my connection with God. So how do you feel, what are your thoughts on that?
It's gonna somewhat piggyback on what you said, because you said it already. The spiritual part, I was like that. I grew up in the church, non-denominational, went to Sunday school, tried to learn more about God, especially after seeing death firsthand. I tried to learn more, and I realized they didn't have answers. They were just men in robes. Because I was like, well, why doesn't the Bible mention this? Why does that? And then I switched religions. I literally switched teams, and then I went over there and realized that it was more or less the same. Much cleaner than what people believe. Muslims, at least the ones when I went to the masjid, it was individual. It was like, you got to bathe before you come in, you got to wash up, you can't walk in there with shoes. So even people's houses were like really, really clean and immaculate. So like, that misconception was blown away. But yeah, I would say religion itself, the dogma, has pretty much petered out. Okay. I would go on a limb and say, like, there are people who do believe, but they're just putting on airs. It's gone. The answer about the church thing, I figured that out after I left Christianity for a little bit. I was just like, okay, you don't need church. Jesus didn't have a church. He just went out and talked to people. That was, church was people. Church was not a building you go sit in, and it's a club. And then when I realized, like, oh, Sunday at church is a club for old people who don't go clubbing at night no more. They go clubbing during the day. They be dancing, singing, jumping up. You got the MC doing his thing in the pulpit.
Oh my God.
Yeah, instead of paying for drinks, you paying tithes.
Oh.
So. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're gonna end on that note.
Okay.
All right.
Because like I said, you don't want to ask.
Yeah, we're gonna end on that note. But thank you again so much for showing up. And one last thing. Do you have a line or a tidbit that you want to leave our audience before we depart?
It's everything and nothing at the same time.
It's everything and nothing at the same time. All right. Well, thank you. Do you have tell people where they can find you, your socials, like what you're up to, any projects? This is the time to plug it in.
Okay. YouTube, GRD. That's Golf Romeo Delta Outfitters. Look for the black guy.
Okay.
That's talking esoterics and philosophical stuff. I will leave the logo up there. It's a black and cream colored logo. It says GRD Outfitters, established in 2005.
Okay.
Yeah, I think since I said that kind of on this timestamp, so I got to keep that logo up now.
Yeah.
But yeah, just GRD Outfitters, and then though my YouTube page is more active than anything else, and that has links to all the other stuff that you need to know. Okay, so go and check out his YouTube channel, and then go click on them links and hit his other stuff. Do you have any other projects that you want to promote or anything? Everything's on. If you want to see the projects I'm working on, my actions speak louder than words. So just go to the YouTube channel. There's links there that takes you to SoundCloud, Bandcamp, and all the other socials. There you go. All right. Well, he also is a musician, so check out his albums on SoundCloud and Bandcamp and YouTube. And we'll catch you on the next one. Thank you again for coming. And I'm going to bring you back next time because we got more topics that we got to talk about. Yeah, we got more things to talk about. So, thank you so much, Mr. R'Gos. Mr. R'Gos Rho. Thank you. You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Glowhood podcast. If you like this episode and would like to see more episodes like this, please subscribe and follow Glowhood by visiting www.glowhood.com, or you can follow us on all social media platforms at Glowhood Podcast. Thank you again for your support, and I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Glowhood podcast. If you like this episode and would like to see more episodes like this, please subscribe and follow Glowhood by visiting www.glowhood.com, or you can follow us on all social media platforms at Glowhood Podcast. If you would also like to support the show, you can visit our Patreon at patreon.com/glowhood, where you can join for as little as $3 a month. You'll have access to exclusive content like bonus episodes, behind-the-scene footage, monthly Q&As, and more. Thank you again for your support, and I'll see you on the next episode.